Welcome to the story. Don't forget to like, subscribe and support me. The astral explorer glided through the vast, dark emptiness of space, its sleek hull illuminated by the faint glow of distant stars. Inside, the hum of the ship's engines provided a steady rhythm, a comforting sound that kept the crew grounded in their mission. For months, they had been searching for new worlds, charting unexplored regions of the galaxy, but this planet of this uncharted, lifeless rock in the middle of nowhere had caught their attention in a way no other had. Dr. Olivia Kane stood at the observation deck, her eyes fixed on the barren, rust-colored surface below. She was an xenoarchaeologist, and her career had been built on the discovery of ancient alien artifacts. This planet had intrigued her from the moment they picked up the strange energy readings on their sensors. There was something here, something old, and it was calling to her. Dr. Kane, we're preparing to land, Commander Jason Cross's voice crackled over the intercom, pulling her from her thoughts. On my way, she replied, turning from the window. She grabbed her equipment and headed toward the shuttle bay, her heart racing with anticipation. The rest of the crew was already gathered. Commander Cross, tall and stoic, gave her a nod as she entered. He was a military man through and through, pragmatic and cautious. His job was to keep them safe, but Olivia knew his cautious nature often clashed with her curiosity. Lieutenant Marcus Hall, the ship's security officer, stood by the weapons locker, outfitting himself with a rifle and tactical gear. Olivia couldn't help but smirk. They were scientists on an exploration mission, but Marcus treated every landing like a potential battle zone. We're not expecting any hostiles down there, are we? Olivia teased. Marcus gave her a grin. You never know. I'd rather be prepared. Beside him, Samira Patel, the ship's lead engineer, adjusted her helmet nervously. She was brilliant, but the thought of leaving the safety of the ship always made her uneasy. She shot Olivia a quick smile, though the worry in her eyes was evident. All systems are ready, Commander, Samira said quietly, checking her equipment once more. Commander Cross nodded. Let's move out. The shuttle descended through the thin atmosphere, shaking slightly as it approached the surface. As they landed on the dusty ground, a thick, eerie silence greeted them. No wind, no signs of life, just the stillness of a world long forgotten. The crew exited the shuttle, their boots sinking into the soft, reddish sand. Olivia's eyes scanned the horizon, taking in the massive structures that loomed in the distance. They were enormous, ancient, and covered in strange, glowing symbols. Monolithic towers of stone jutted out from the planet's surface, casting long shadows across the barren landscape. The energy readings were stronger now, pulsing rhythmically like a heartbeat. This is it, Olivia whispered, more to herself than anyone else. The crew approached the ruins cautiously. Marcus took the lead, his rifle at the ready, while Olivia lagged slightly behind, mesmerized by the sheer scale of the structures. As they entered the first chamber, the air grew colder, and the silence became oppressive. The walls were covered in intricate carvings, depicting scenes of alien life forms performing rituals, their eyes wide with madness. This place gives me the creeps, Marcus muttered, his voice echoing through the chamber. Let's not jump to conclusions, Olivia said, her hand brushing against the stone. It was cool to the touch, almost too cool. She continued forward, drawn to the center of the room where a massive, glowing artifact stood on a pedestal. It was unlike anything she had ever seen, an orb, pulsating with a strange, rhythmic energy that seemed to sync with her own heartbeat. What is it? Samira asked, her voice trembling. I'm not sure, Olivia replied, her fingers itching to touch it. But it's ancient, that's for sure. Don't, Commander Cross warned. We need to run some tests first. But Olivia couldn't resist. The pull was too strong. Her hand hovered over the orb, and before she realized what she was doing, her fingers brushed the surface. The instant she made contact, a jolt of energy shot through her, and her vision blurred. For a brief moment, she felt connected to something vast, something unfathomable. It was as if the universe itself had opened up to her, revealing its deepest secrets. Then, just as quickly, it was gone. Olivia, Cross shouted, grabbing her arm and pulling her back. What the hell were you thinking? I'm fine, she stammered, though her heart was still racing. But something had changed. The air around them felt heavier, darker. The silence, once oppressive, now felt malevolent, as if the very walls were watching them. We need to leave, Cross said, his tone firm. Now. They retreated back to the shuttle, but the unease followed them. Olivia couldn't shake the feeling that something had awakened in that chamber, something that was now watching them. As the shuttle lifted off, she glanced back at the ruins, the glowing orb barely visible in the distance. The return to the Astral Explorer was somber. The crew was on edge, the usual camaraderie replaced with tension. Marcus paced the length of the common area, his eyes darting toward the door as if expecting something to burst through at any moment. Samira sat in the corner, her hands shaking slightly as she ran diagnostics on the shuttle's systems. We shouldn't have touched it, Marcus muttered under his breath. That thing wasn't meant to be disturbed. Enough, Cross snapped. We'll figure this out. Dr. Kane, I want a full report on what happened down there. Olivia nodded, though her thoughts were scattered. She couldn't explain what she had felt in that moment of contact, but she knew it wasn't normal. Something had changed, not just in her, but in the ship itself. Over the next few days, the atmosphere aboard the Astral Explorer grew more tense. The crew members began experiencing strange symptoms: headaches, nightmares, and sudden outbursts of anger. Samira, usually calm and collected, started hearing whispers in the corridors, though no one else could hear them. Marcus became increasingly paranoid, accusing the others of hiding things from him. It wasn't long before the first death occurred. Dr. Ethan Wills, one of the ship's biologists, was found dead in his quarters, his body twisted in a grotesque manner. There were no signs of a struggle, no indications of foul play, but the expression on his face, eyes wide, mouth agape, suggested sheer terror. The crew was shaken. Marcus immediately suspected sabotage, his paranoia escalating. One of us did this, he growled, his hand hovering over the weapon strapped to his side. We're not alone on this ship. Calm down, Cross ordered, though even he looked unsettled. We need to investigate this properly. But as more time passed, it became clear that Ethan's death was no isolated incident. Samira was next. They found her near the artifact in a trance-like state, her body limp and cold, her mind seemingly broken by the whispers that had plagued her. Commander Cross and Olivia huddled in the command room, trying to make sense of the madness that was unfolding. This can't be a coincidence, Olivia said, her voice trembling. The artifact. It's doing something to us. Cross rubbed his temples, the strain evident on his face. What are we dealing with here? I think it's a form of telepathic manipulation, Olivia explained. The artifact must have activated something when I touched it, something that's influencing our thoughts and behavior. It's feeding off our fear, our paranoia. We have to destroy it, Commander Cross said, his voice barely more than a whisper, as if speaking the words aloud might draw the artifact's attention. He paced the small room, his mind racing for solutions. Olivia sat across from him, her head in her hands, feeling the weight of the situation pressing down on her chest. It's not that simple, Olivia replied, looking up at him, her eyes hollow from exhaustion. We don't know the full extent of what we're dealing with. The artifact, it's ancient, far beyond our understanding. Destroying it could trigger something worse, something we can't control. Cross clenched his fists. And keeping it on board is any better? We're losing people, Olivia. The crew is unraveling. If we don't do something soon, we won't make it out of this alive. His words hung in the air, the truth of them undeniable. They were running out of time, and they both knew it. Whatever was affecting them, whatever the artifact had unleashed, it was growing stronger. Olivia could feel it too, a gnawing sensation at the back of her mind, like something was trying to creep into her thoughts, twisting them, manipulating her. She stood up, shaky on her feet. We need to contain it, isolate it somehow. There has to be a way to stop the influence without destroying it. Maybe the answers are in the ruins. Cross gave her a skeptical look. You're suggesting we go back? I'm suggesting we don't have a choice, Olivia said, her voice firming up with resolve. The longer we wait, the worse it's going to get. Whatever is controlling us, it's in that artifact, but the ruins. They might have something we missed. Something that can stop this. Cross exhaled sharply, rubbing a hand over his face. Alright. But we go in prepared this time. No touching anything. We stick to the plan. They gathered what remained of the crew while Marcus, pale and jittery, his eyes darting around as if expecting danger at every turn, and two of the engineers who had been less affected so far, though even they looked haunted by whatever they'd seen in their nightmares. The group moved quietly through the dimly lit corridors of the Astral Explorer, the atmosphere thick with tension. As they descended to the planet's surface once more, Olivia couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching them, that the very ruins themselves were alive, pulsing with an ancient consciousness. She glanced at Marcus, who clutched his rifle tightly, his knuckles white. They made their way back to the main chamber where the artifact still pulsed with an eerie glow. Olivia approached it cautiously, her mind racing through possibilities. She knelt by the base of the pedestal, examining the alien carvings, the strange symbols etched into the stone. Something was off, something she hadn't noticed before. There's a pattern here, she murmured, more to herself than anyone else. The carvings. They're a sequence, like a lock. A lock? Marcus scoffed, clearly on edge. A lock for what? To keep something in, Olivia replied, her voice barely a whisper. Or to keep something out. Cross glanced at her, his brow furrowed. What are you saying? I think this artifact wasn't meant to be activated. It's a containment vessel, designed to hold whatever's inside. When I touched it, I must have triggered it. That's when all this started. Marcus shifted uneasily, his rifle still aimed at the artifact. So what do we do? How do we stop it? Olivia ran her fingers over the carvings, trying to decipher their meaning. If we can reverse the sequence, maybe we can shut it down, contain whatever's been released. Or we could destroy it, Marcus muttered, his voice laced with desperation. Blow the damn thing up and be done with it. Cross shook his head. Not until we know what we're dealing with. If we destroy it without understanding how it works, we could make things worse. The group fell into a tense silence, the weight of the situation pressing down on them. Olivia's fingers moved faster now, her mind racing to piece together the puzzle. She could feel the influence of the artifact growing stronger, the whispers in her mind louder, more insistent. It was trying to break her down, to make her stop. Almost there, she muttered, focusing on the symbols. Just a little more. Suddenly, Marcus let out a low growl. I can't do this anymore. Before anyone could react, he raised his rifle and fired. The shot rang out, deafening in the enclosed space. Olivia ducked instinctively, the sound reverberating in her skull. The blast hit the wall behind the artifact, sending chunks of stone flying. Marcus, no! Cross shouted, lunging at him. He wrestled the rifle from Marcus's hands, but it was too late. The damage was done. The artifact's glow intensified, pulsating wildly, its rhythm erratic and chaotic. The air around them grew thick, almost suffocating, as the temperature plummeted. Olivia scrambled to her feet, her heart pounding in her chest. We need to get out of here, one of the engineers shouted, backing toward the exit. But before they could move, the artifact unleashed a burst of energy, knocking them all to the ground. Olivia's vision blurred, and for a moment, she couldn't hear anything but the deafening roar of static in her ears. She forced herself to sit up, her body aching from the impact. The chamber had changed. The walls seemed to ripple, as though reality itself was distorting. Shadows writhed in the corners of her vision, and the whispers in her mind had become a deafening chorus. Olivia! Cross's voice cut through the haze. He was by her side, pulling her to her feet. We have to move. But Olivia was frozen, her gaze locked on the artifact. The symbols on its surface were shifting, rearranging themselves in a way that made her stomach churn. The alien language, once incomprehensible, now made perfect sense to her. She could read it, understand it, and it terrified her. This isn't just a containment vessel, she whispered. It's alive. It's been feeding on us, growing stronger. We don't have time, Cross shouted, dragging her toward the exit. Move. They stumbled out of the chamber, the artifact's glow still visible behind them, pulsating like a dying star. The ruins themselves seemed to twist and warp as they ran, the architecture shifting in impossible ways. Olivia's mind was reeling, the whispers gnawing at her sanity. They barely made it back to the shuttle, slamming the door shut as the engines roared to life. The ship lifted off the surface, but the planet didn't seem to shrink away as it should have. It loomed large in the viewport, its gravity almost pulling them back. Olivia collapsed into a seat, her breathing ragged. Cross stood by the controls, his face grim, the strain of leadership evident in the lines etched into his skin. What now? One of the engineers asked, his voice trembling. We barely made it out alive. What do we do? Cross didn't answer right away. His eyes were fixed on the planet, his jaw clenched. Finally, he spoke, his voice low and steady. We destroy it, from orbit. We can't let that thing escape. Olivia looked up at him, her eyes wide with shock. But we don't know what kind of reaction that will cause. It could. It doesn't matter, Cross interrupted. Whatever that thing is, it's too dangerous to leave intact. We have to end this, now. Olivia wanted to argue, to protest, but deep down, she knew he was right. The artifact, the ruins, the planet, it all needed to be destroyed before the entity inside could fully manifest. With a heavy heart, she nodded. Do it. Cross set the coordinates and activated the ship's weapons systems. The Astral Explorer hovered above the planet, its targeting systems locking onto the ruins below. A few moments later, the ship's main cannon fired, the blast lighting up the darkness of space. The explosion was blinding, a brilliant flash of light that engulfed the entire planet. The ground below erupted in a fiery storm of destruction, the artifact consumed by the inferno. Olivia watched as the surface of the planet cracked and splintered, the ruins reduced to rubble. But even as the planet was torn apart, she couldn't shake the feeling that they hadn't truly escaped. The whispers had faded, but a lingering presence remained in the back of her mind, quiet, patient. Cross sighed, slumping into a chair as the ship sped away from the dying planet. It's over, he said, though his voice lacked conviction. Olivia stared out into the void, her mind still racing. For now, she whispered,